It's halfway nice today. It's been rain patches and then blue skies. I thought I would video working on the deck. We redid the caulk, the seams, over the course of last summer. The summer before that, we did the aft deck. This is the last section that we haven't done. The anchor locker. You can see the old caulk just comes right out. So, I don't know. Thought I'd work on that today. So this is just a fine multi-tool with what's called a reefing hook. Incredibly sharp. So you use this to take the old caulk out of the seams. Next step, I use the router to recut the grooves. There's my router. Got a 5mm bit set with the depth at 6mm. I think originally they both would have been 5mm wide and deep, but 6mm seems to give it a little more room for the caulk. And I've been pulling them freehand. I've made a few mistakes, but only a few. You could do it with a 1/4" dado blade, I think, on a skill saw. But I think that would leave its own problems when you get to the ends and the curves and things like that. There's also a reefing hook, just a manual reefing hook that I'll use next. I'll show you that. I don't know, this is how I've been doing it. It seems to work. straight routed lines. I'll show you. There's a few little like that, but when we go to clean up the rest of the lines, when I clean them up with the reefing hook and the sanding block, we'll take all those out. So yeah, cool. Okay, next step. So I pulled my caulk out with the electric reefing hook, and then I cut new grooves with the router. Now I'm gonna clean. You can see remnants of caulk in the grooves, you know, just scattered bits. So now we take the manual reef hook and you just pull everything out. Okay, well, it won't quit drizzling out there, so I've taken to working in the cockpit, standing in the companionway, which is super convenient for everybody else. But it's actually kind of nice. It's like having your work up on a workbench. Okay, so now we've pretty well got all of our excess goop and stuff, besides the little tiny pieces, cleaned out of our grooves with our reefing hook. Now we're going to take our sanding block, sticky sandpaper. I use this 80 grit. You can just trim it and fold it around. It works really well. So just take this in your grooves, get them all cleaned up, nice and pretty, and everything cleaned out of them. Well, there's one of the two anchor locker covers just about ready. I probably have another hour on this one, just getting little bits of wood and stuff, little bits of glue from the original, when the teak was originally laid down, off, and sanding. Here's a tip. You're working on a project that requires scissors to cut things like sandpaper, go ahead and go into the kitchen or your wife's craft basket and grab hers, because they're definitely sharper than whatever I've got in the shop. It'll keep things sporting. There's a little caulk left over from the old hardware, so I'm just gonna put a light sand on it with this 80 grit random orbital and clean that up. Cleaning out these last little tidbits in the corners with a razor knife. And then we'll take a rag, wash them with acetone. Some people don't tape the seams I've seen on YouTube and stuff, but what we did is we taped it with 1 inch, which is a little thinner than the grooves. It just helps not having to clean so much off later. But the caulk sands so easily, you really don't need to tape it all if you don't want to. Okay, now we put new caulk in. This stuff is ridiculously messy to work with. Messy beyond measure. Okay, getting there. Now we're gonna sand it. So I've got a Rotex RO150 sander. It's a 6-inch diameter sander. It can sand in a rotary motion, which is how I'll use it. But it also has the ability to sand in an eccentric. It still moves, but it's very slight. We bought this sander when we painted the bottom of the boat, and I sanded the entire bottom of the boat in one day with this thing. It was the better part of a 10-hour day, but it's amazing. It's just, you look at it and you think, who the hell would spend that much money on a sander? But we've done the deck with it and we've done the bottom with it, and I would buy it for either job individually, just to do that one job. It made that big of a difference. Using this from a 4-inch random orbital sander is like, it's like coming out of the Stone Age or something. It's just crazy. And of course it's built by the Germans, just like that fine multi-tool. Who else builds fucking awesome tools like that? We don't anymore. That's pretty much it for redoing the anchor locker doors. I'll put the hardware, I'll give them a couple good wipes down, and put teak oil on them, and put the hardware back on. I'll sand, the original fitting, the original sides there where we didn't sand before. You can see where it's still fairly rough. It obviously doesn't match this part of the deck, but I bet after this summer of saltwater spray and sunshine and just use, it'll look like this. This part of the deck, this whole part, we did that all last summer. We finished it in the fall in October. We teak oiled it in October, and then again just here a week ago. And the color really came back out. It was really gray after this winter, but that teak oil, the color came back out really well. It's not perfect. There's a handful of mistakes on the deck, but just those two doors alone, where I'm at right now, and I probably still have 2 more hours. I'm 12 hours into those 2 little doors. So I don't even know the amount of time that went into the rest of this deck. I can tell you that I would never do this project again willingly unless somebody was paying me a lot of money. It's just backbreaking. You wear through knee pads. You got to wear earbuds all the time for the noise, and teak dust, even with the vacuum hooked up to the sander or even just hand sanding it, teak dust is just horrible, man. It's like super fine, but somehow it's heavy, and so it just settles and it gets in your nose and your mouth, and even with the respirator, it's not fun to work with. But I'm glad that we did it. One of those things, you know, you start doing it and you kind of have to finish, even though you're tired of it. But this deck won't stand another, it won't take another sanding. It'll have to come off, and that'll be a sad day, but we might not even own this boat at that point. Maybe we'll be on to something different. Okay, wait a little bit longer for the last of this water from wiping the dust off to dry up, and then we'll put teak oil. After a little experience with working on the teak decks, stay away from the stuff like Semco. That's almost like a stain, or a almost like a paint. I don't know how to describe it. We put it on the back deck. We had talked to a bunch of people that had used it, and they said, yeah, you know, do the Semco. It's the way to go. The problem with it is, after you walk on it and use it for a little while, it just comes off. So I don't know how well this well, actually it looks like it shows up pretty well in the video. I mean, you can see where the gray is, where the Semco is just almost just wearing off. Maybe we did a poor job of putting it on. You know, it's highly likely that we made a mistake, but it seems a bit odd that in the areas where we have a lot of foot traffic back and forth, and, you know, across back here on the back deck, that's where it's coming off. We haven't tried putting teak oil back here to see if that maybe evens the color out or brings a little life back into the teak. But compared to the front deck, that's just teak oil. I mean, come on, it's so much nicer looking, and the wood looks so much more healthy. You're never gonna stop teak from turning gray in the weather, but that's fine. That's like natural. You know, keep it sanded, keep oil on it. I think it looks beautiful. It doesn't take stain very well. It doesn't take, I mean, you can seal it, and then you can varnish it, which is what I did on the banisters back here. It's got 2 coats of epoxy and then like 5 or 6 coats of varnish. But you know, it's the same thing. The oil in the teak makes the, you can see I've got one spot here where it's bubbling a little bit. And that's just the natural oils in the teak sort of rejecting anything you put on it. It's a pretty happy wood just by itself, I think. Just keep a little oil in it so it can, to help the natural oils that are in the wood, which is why it's put on decks of boats, because it naturally repels water. So just do that. Keep it simple, stupid. And that seems to be, at least in our 2 years, very 2 years of experience with teak, it looks a heck of a lot better. That would be my advice. Okay, time for a splash of teak oil.